What is going on, everybody? This is my Sons of Medusa Primaris Marine. It is a 30-year anniversary model. I got it from Adepticon in my swag bag for being a attendee at Adepticon. It's it's not that interesting for a 30-year anniversary, but he's cool. So you could use him as like a lieutenant or maybe a captain with a bolter, and maybe paint his bolter a little more interesting. I wanted to do an art critique on my model. I just did a 25-minute art critique on this guy and then realized that all I was recording was the homepage of YouTube with my screen capture, and it never actually recorded the pictures. So I got to redo it. So things I noticed in the first time, I'm really happy with the rock on the base. It is cork painted with dry pigments and sepia wash and sprayed with a dull coat, and I use matte or pigment binder for that. And I feel like so throughout the pictures, pay attention to the rock if you like. That is, I feel like it achieved like some kind of level of realism, which I found very interesting. Things I'm not happy with: the building up the white. Although I was using thin paints in the beginning, when I went to actually do the highlights, it obviously got a little thick. And this is pretty tiny spec, so I mean the Space Marine head is probably 5 times, 10 times the size right now. But I can still see the little specks, and definitely in the photos here you can see the specks, especially one right here. The only way you can really get rid of that is at this point, because it's already dried, would be like to sand it. And I'm not going to do that. Pretty happy with the eye. I tried to achieve a fade, which I think I got, and a little bit of a kind of OSL coming on the eye socket, but nothing like the crazy airbrush blast. One thing I'm a little disappointed with is I was so white on the helmet because I wanted it to be a really white helmet. I really had nowhere to go with the skull, and I kind of chickened out a little bit. Maybe if the eyes on the skull were as dark as this core shadow in the front of his helmet, but I don't know. This circle here on the side also, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that. And these metallic, well, let's go here first. So I just noticed this in the video I recorded, that this is just obviously not looking close enough at the model, because I thought it looked pretty good when I was doing the highlights, but clearly I missed quite a bit here. Like even there, like I don't know how I did that, but I might have to go back and touch that up. And when I painted this, I actually did have this arm off, so that was wide open. I did a lot of work on that, so I don't know how I screwed that up so bad. These little buttons on his forearm, I do feel could be maybe highlighted one more. I did put a little light blue there, or white, light blue, blue, red, kind of a yellow white. I think I could touch it one step higher. The gun itself, it's okay. I don't see a ton of interest in it. I did paint these highlights, but it's a very glossy metallic paint, and I have 3 lamps pointing at this guy to try and figure out how to take a good picture. And so it's not only a painted highlight, but that painted highlight underneath the light is really bouncing back. So I really like that effect. In the photos, it probably just looks like it's just the reflection of the light from the lamps. But there is a little bit more going on there. It appears I should have cleaned up a little bit around here with the red. Looks like it's spilling over onto the little lip. Also this skull here, I did a couple kind of different tones of gold, but it doesn't seem like enough for contrast, or whatever's not enough to show. Maybe the eye socket needs to be darker, or maybe a highlight here, a highlight down the top here. Just pick out something. I had the fingers all really nice, and then I got red on them when I was doing the bolter and not paying attention, and that ended up with me just kind of going back over and glazing over them, and it doesn't seem like I went back in and spent the time to bring back up the little highlights on the fingers and the knuckles right here. You can still see the shadow work I did, but I like this little square here. That was fun to do, like a dark, mid, light. This is kind of interesting. You can really see the paint at work here and what I was trying. So you can see the shadow kind of here. You can see a darker tone here, a kind of mid tone here, where it goes into the highlight and then the white highlight. I like oil painting. I don't mind brush strokes at all. So I believe in kind of transparent shadows and opaque highlights. And you can see my highlight here and here. There might be a little bit of texture on that. That's coming just from an oil painting kind of approach. I got a little out of focus, but I'm pretty happy with these purity seals. This is highlighted. It's also glossy, so it's bouncing a lot of light. This is the first time I ever tried to put little scratches. Some of them are good because they're sharp and thin. Some of them have a little bit too thick line, so they're okay. Also, this highlight on top of the knee just looks a little off in the pictures. I'll have to check that again in real life to see how that actually looks to me. So those are just a few things that could be worked on. Let's go to the next one. I tried to paint bravely, courtesy of Matt DiPietro. So I wanted to do some freehands just to try. This is a model I don't have an army for. I don't have a Sons of Medusa army. I only painted it for fun and to try really hard and make something cool. So the skull is kind of like derpy or dorky. There's some things wrong with it, but I think it's a good start. And I think I'm happy I tried. So it only has 4 teeth. It should have more. They should be smaller. These lines should be thinner. So not only should the teeth be smaller, but you should also be able to pick each individual one out. You can pick each one out, but they're so big, it's obvious you can pick them out. It would have probably been, it's not supposed to be like a necessarily realistic skull. I tried to do kind of realistic style, but I didn't try to go for realistic proportions. Also not totally happy with this brow shadow that I did from each eye socket to create this kind of stylistic point. I don't think it's really selling. There is some line work that could have been cleaned up down on the bottom here, a little bit on the sides, and you'll see it wraps around in the other picture. Overall, I'm happy though that I tried. This eye, I don't think had the same success as the other one, if you remember, or go back. Oh, let's go back. So that one there, oh Lord. Okay, so that eye has more of a glow. This eye looks more of like a white eye. Just a minor thing to think about. The non-metallic metal effect should be probably sold more on these to create a lot of interest. There are shadows and highlights. I was trying to, paint the shadows to that way the model is interesting, even not in perfect lighting conditions. And the extra lights in these photos sells the shadows more. And I'm curious if it looks like I painted the shadows or if he just looks like the model figure itself is casting its own shadows, which it is, but I did paint a lot of shadows in there. You can see here my highlights are kind of thick. Here. That one should probably be very sharp and thin, maybe like a sharp corner or sharp corner that way, instead of just a swipe across. That's okay though. Also, you'll notice sometimes I did line in the shadows and things. Other times you'll see it's like here, I've lost a little bit, but I didn't want to fully edge highlight and shade all the recesses a la heavy metal. So it is what it is. Pretty happy with the back of the legs. I feel like they came out pretty nice. Well, before we do that, let's go here. Here you can, this is intentional that the red comes up over the skull and the skull continues behind it. That is on the other side too, but this should be cleaner. I need to clean that up. just run my little celestial gray. But see, I'm going to shake and go, and then I'm going to start all over. This is a highlight painted into the corner just to add some more interest into that. Kind of like how you can see the green backpack. So I guess that is why you maybe paint something separate and work on it in pieces. The black backpack is cheated. It's done with black primer and then over dry brushed, I guess, with blue gray from Vallejo Model Color, and then Nuln oiled, and then blue gray lines just put in to add just a little bit of interest. You can clearly see how it wasn't about, I didn't do every edge down every line. Maybe it would look a little better. I kind of like the way this came out. When you zoom out, it has a nice kind of just matte black. These are highlights painted on the exhaust pipes there, or whatever they are. All the metallics, for the most part, are metal colors. If you watch some other painters like Vince Venturella, they are huge fans of those, and I got to using them for quite a long time now. And they are the best. It's like painting with the T1000 after it melts. If you go in here, could have added some more interest to the skull and the hilt, but for the most part, and remember, we're looking at this at least double size or more. I think it adds enough interest. And it's funny, so I painted attempted two freehands to paint bravely, but I chickened out on painting bravely to actually try and write little squiggly lines on my purity seals. So it is what it is. And I can do little tiny lines. I mean, I did kind of hatch in some lines on the hilt here, but I don't know, scabbard. If you see here, I feel like this has a nice look. I kind of like the mid-tones here, goes into the shadow here, the highlight down there, and then on top of that with the lamp, the light is reflecting off there, so it makes it sell even better. Also, the little scratches or whatever are thin. I think that came out nice. Although these little back things, I don't know what they are. I just decided to leave them, and wasn't too worried about them until I zoomed in on these pictures this big, and then I'm looking at them like, oh, maybe I should have done something with those. And that is the butt. See, here you can see a good view of the rock. I don't know, I'm pretty proud of that rock. And that was dry pigments. I'll show you the set I have, and Game Air Sepia, and that was just to try and get some shadows on the sides and stuff in different colors. And I just kept mashing it in and putting pigment binder, and then eventually I sprayed it with a dull coat to hopefully seal that all in. Look at that. That's just a nice rock. Here's the other freehand. I attempted an S for Sons of Medusa. I don't know if they do that, but I did it. I tried to flatten out the ends to make like a sharp, flat font, and it clearly was not working. I didn't have the brush control. It's like I don't know. You can see the zigzag here was quite a mess going. So I think I need to clean that up, or leave it and move on. I'm not sure. Also, this black rim looks like it needs to be reinforced with the black again. I think I got the white onto it, including up here. I get a little scared working with the black near the white because it takes a lot of work to get the white back to what it is. And then that's how I also am getting some of this texture from the white. You can see on the back of the head again, and on the shoulder. You can kind of see, it's hard to tell if it's texture or brush strokes, but here you can definitely see texture building up. And that is, like I said, I paint lights more opaque anyway, and then that's what's happening there. So, unfortunate mistake. Kept these simple, just interesting enough. You can see here, this is not paint buildup, but also some problem with how I built the model. Obviously, I was cleaning it or something and nicked it. And the same here, I actually cut out a little piece of his leg. Even though I tried really hard to be careful. And it's just battle damage now. This is a mistake here that should be cleaned up. Here you can see I didn't continue the shadow. There's so many layers of thin green wash, like Build Tan wash with like airbrush thinner and flow improver in it. But it looks like either my primer or that eventually started to fill in this line, which is because I was really hatching a lot of marks trying to create a smoother blend. I think I went too dark right away. You can see some of the real darks. And then it was hard to figure out how to get it back to light without putting lots and lots of layers. And then that's when you're going to make the mistake that you're going to try and, you know, speed it up with 1 or 2 layers, and then you get the texture, and that's how that happens. I added the pigments and stuff to the feet, plus some wash to try and just dirty him up a little, even though I don't really carry any weathering into him, which I could do, but I didn't want to turn this into a study or attempt at weathering as much as I wanted to just try and almost do a non-metallic metal or whatever. A lot of glazes and blending on the green armor, and play with some freehands. So it's practicing with intent. I don't feel, I feel like I put a lot of time into it, but obviously not enough, because I'm looking at it now, and when it's zoomed in, maybe this is only the halfway point, and I should have done this before I glued it together. And that will probably give you a good idea of what you're looking at, because you can't look zoomed in here. Now this S is 10 times the size of the little tiny shoulder pad. So you don't ever see this in real life, but when you zoom in, you can get a good idea of exactly where to go back. And this is the difference here. This line is like one of the differences of between something looking unbelievable and something looking, pretty good. But to me, I don't mind things like this so much if they don't take away from something, because to me it looks painterly. Because if you zoom in on like a Rembrandt or a Sargent oil painting, Caravaggio, Bouguereau, any of the great ones, that you can see a lot of brush strokes. Now, obviously we're working on a much smaller scale, so I'm thinking maybe the brush strokes you should see on the miniature you should still see them, but they should be very fine, sharp lines. I don't know if that's true. I'm not trying to imitate another miniature painter style as much as I'm trying to enjoy painting, and I kind of approach things oil painterly. Looks like I should maybe touch this little bracket thing one more level up of value. Could be black, I don't know. Sometimes I always just make them silver or brass or whatever to sell them. And I think that's it. And there you see the rock continues to be pretty cool. So this is the pigment set I bought. Soot and Ashes. It comes with 4 dried pigments and some pigment binder. And they're just powdery. I used an old brush and I just started matching it around, and it was super fun. So I highly recommend this. I'm going to pick up another one of these sets. They have a rust one. Now my Vostroyans and every Scions are all kind of already a rusty orange. So they will probably get this set for their bases, and then the rusty orange and brown tones will go for maybe my Death Watch, if I get them working, or maybe some Tyranids or something along those lines. Anyway, this is super fun. Pick this set up, or at least 1 or 2. I used 4 different pigments, and I went back and forth, plus an game ink. So I don't think one's going to cut it. I think you're going to need multiple, and you're just going to keep mashing it around. Well, it's not really mashing it because it's dry, but like pressing it around and dusting it around until you find something you like, and then I would bind it, and then if I didn't like something, I'd go back in and do it again until it looked cool to me. These are the colors I use. These ones are how I originally airbrushed the green. I got this from a guy who I follow on Instagram, and also he is on YouTube. If you search how to paint Sons of Medusa, he doesn't use all these, but he definitely uses light livery or livery green. And then he goes moot green, which I also use. Moot green and aerial yellow. Those are all thinned down with water, Lamy medium, flow improver, and airbrush thinner. Sometimes all little bits of all of them, sometimes some of each. Not all of them, 2 or 3 of them. I was just playing, I was just trying to keep the paint thin, and yet I still achieved some texture. So I clearly didn't do it every time, I guess. The reason I went moot green after is I was finding it better to glaze because this middle green was too much of like a neutral earth tone. Even though it looks like a bright green, it's kind of more realistic, I guess. Maybe like a celery color or something. But so I went with the moot green because I wanted to keep that intense green color to go with this light ivory yellow. I used both of these to create shadows and highlights in various places. You could see it repeated all over the model. Anytime a highlight looked a little chalky, I would go back over with Lamenter's yellow and try to bring it back to a green shade. Instead of it being a pastel light chalky green, the yellow will help bring it back to kind of a fiery. And we can probably see, we see that right here. So down here, you can see when this got chalky, I went over with the yellow glaze, and not straight, mixed, or very, very thin, and that's what brings this back to looks more like a green tone highlight. See, but it is actually a lot of yellow involved. The red tone is mixed with the veiled tan to create the darkest shadows. I think I sometimes maybe use a touch of dark tone from Army Painter. They have really good washes. I only own a couple of them, the red tone, dark tone, and strong tone. I like all of them a lot. I think I use strong tone on the rope of this Space Marine shoulder pad. So just something fun to think about. One problem, I feel like I went too dark too fast. So maybe I should have worked a little more gradual from the airbrush step to the darkest shadows. I pretty much went airbrush step, darkest shadows, and then tried to work them, back towards the mid-tone, and then went for the highlight. And I think maybe I should have went airbrush step to like the, mid shadows until I worked all the way to like core shadows. And it's interesting because so a core shadow on a sphere, I'll zoom this in. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. So a core shadow on a sphere would mean the darkest part would be like here, right? And it doesn't then get darker all the way down. It's usually dark here, and then there would be like a reflected light down here, and that would sell the sphere. Obviously, I chickened out a little bit on doing that reflected light, but you can see here it's light. Let's see how many values we got here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably that's 6 different values, and anything mixture in between. So you can see, I tried to do it. Now this would sell even better if there was a reflected light down here. It's like a still life painter would do it. I worry about that though on a miniature because there are actual things happening under the light of the model that are naturally causing light. This is under 3 lamps though. Just kind of disappointed when I zoom in at these specs. I really kind of maybe I should have cleaned my palette before I did. I might have been picking up little bits of dried paint or something, placing them in when I was glazing because my washes were very, very thin, but it must have been drying. Obviously it's drying at the same time, even though you got a little cup. I do have wet palettes, but I didn't use it for this. I probably should have. On these chords, I just did a kind of quick little highlight. I don't want to do the whole, each individual line. Just enough to let you know I knew it was there, but not enough to bring much interest to it. There you can see that. You can see I have it highlighted enough so it's like, okay, he didn't forget it, but I didn't put a lot into that. Here again, that line could be darker and it would break up this highlight, but oh well. That's all I got. Sons of Medusa. This was a super fun attempt at just trying to paint something good. I don't have a Sons of Medusa army. I'm going to be working on a Primaris army. This guy might be like a Watchmaster or something. I don't know. Or I might try and sell them. Let me know if you have experience selling painted miniatures. How to price them. I would think like $100, but you know, obviously art is in the eye of the beholder. And I don't think this is necessarily display quality, although it is a high tabletop standard, I would think. Well, I don't know. A lot of times when you see commissioned artwork, the standard is airbrush, real quick, and then pick out some details. And then they just highlight some of those details a little more, but it still looks very airbrushed. And that's just not a look I really appreciate or go for. So it's kind of interesting. But people love it, so they pay money, and it's also good for the commission artist because they are able to paint more. And obviously that's how they eat. And eating is good. Pick up some of these paints. That light library green is fun. The Citadel glazes are really fun. Obviously all the shades, everybody knows they're cool. These are good if you want to go super crazy green. I highly recommend army washes. And these dry pigments are very fun. These are the first 4 I got. I'm excited to play with them some more. I'll talk to you soon. Please subscribe. If anybody's still watching, the 150 subscriber giveaway hasn't gone up yet. Still trying to find a prize. The 200 subscriber giveaway is coming right around the corner because we're already almost at 160. So please subscribe. Please like the video if you like it. But most importantly, though, just comment and let me know what you think of my Sons of Medusa Marine. If you are interested in buying him, of course, hit me up with an offer. I might even just end up keeping him because I kind of like him after spending all that time painting him. Mostly I just want to know your critique or thoughts on, you know, how you like the painting or what you think could be improved. If you want me to critique your miniature painting, email me some pictures of your finished models, just like a couple, and I'll go through and I'll deep dive the best of my ability and just tell you my thoughts on what I like, what I don't like, what I think you could improve. And when we do that, there's like a little drawing tool, which is very fun. And you can watch some of my other videos, but I can show you, like, you know, maybe here has highlighted, but how come right there's not highlighted? Or there. That could probably go higher. I mean, I did it, but, you know, just an example. And we have a good time doing that. Also, it's the weekend, so have a good weekend. Talk to you soon. Adios.